Spears music for free, I'd be on the other side because I don't think you should get access to Britney Spears music at any price. This is not about free music as in free beer. This is about the capacity for people to use these technologies to do something different from what they did in the 20th century, but instead something they've done since the beginning of human culture. It's not about piracy. It's about the creativity these technologies enable. So that's first. Second, we need to push for a change in the law, to update this law, to make it make sense. But the problem that I face in my own country is that whenever any of us stand before policymakers and suggest that perhaps copyright law is a little out of touch with the technologies of the time, perhaps we should be modifying, updating copyright law just a bit to make it make sense of these technologies. Whenever we say things like this, we are called a, quote, communist by some of the leading technologists and content leaders in the country. There's a kind of IP McCarthyism that governs in the United States right now, making it literally impossible to talk seriously about legal reform that would make the law make sense of digital technologies. Both the left and the right, both the Democrats and the Republicans, have been captured by this very narrow conception of culture that is fed through lobbying support by Hollywood. So, in my country at least, the idea of legal reform right now is just not possible, which makes even more critical the need for private reform first. And that's the objective of this project that I chair called the Creative Commons Project. To find a simple way for authors, critically, for authors to mark their content with the freedoms that they intend their content to carry. So that we move from a world where the default is all rights reserved, call my lawyer first, to a world where some rights are reserved and some freedoms are clearly signaled to the rest of the world that they can enjoy without worrying about my lawyer now or later. This project has an engine. Its engine is a licensing engine, which you select through our webpage, asking you 3 questions. First, you want to allow commercial use of your work. Second, do you want to allow modifications, derivative uses of your work? And third, if you allow others to make derivatives of your work, do you want to require that they release their work under similarly free terms? These 3 options produce a license that comes in 3 separate layers. The first, designed to make this understandable to ordinary people, is a human-readable commons deed, which expresses in terms anyone should be able to understand the freedoms associated with the content. Second, and very different, is a lawyer-readable license, a 1 billion-page document written by the best lawyers we could find to make enforceable the freedoms associated with the content. And third, extremely important in a digital age, a machine-readable expression of the freedoms associated with the content, so that search engines can begin to gather content on the basis of the freedoms associated with that content. So Yahoo and Google both last year opened up special search portals to search the internet, filtering on Creative Commons licenses, so you can say, show me all the pictures of the Eiffel Tower available for non-commercial use, and they'll gather content on the basis of those freedoms. Now, this project was launched in the United States, but the most important contribution in this project has been its internationalization through the iCommons project, which was a project to take the legal layer here and to port it to different jurisdictions around the world. So the commons deed would be expressible in a local language, understandable by anybody locally. The legal code would be fit to the jurisdiction of that local country, and universal and unchanged would be the digital or the machine-readable code to make the freedoms understandable to the computers. There are now more than 70 countries in the process of porting licenses around the world, and as this process has happened, this was the world as of yesterday, and this is the world as of today. The green countries are countries that have launched Creative Commons licenses. The yellow countries will launch Creative Commons licenses in the next 6 months, and the red countries are yet to be liberated in this process. And as we've spread these licenses internationally, the growth of the licenses has gone up dramatically. So in the first year after launching the licenses, there were about 1 million linkbacks to our licenses. At about 18 months, the number was at about 1.8 million. At 2 years, the number is 4 million. 2.5 years, the number is 12 million. At 3 years, which was last December, the number's at about 45 million linkbacks. Between December and June of 2006, the linkbacks went from 45 million to 140 million linkbacks to the licenses. As more countries, as more people around the world increasingly use this platform to express their idea of the freedom that should be running with their content. Now that's the legal theory. Here's the practical effect. This is a guitar track written by a guitarist, Colin Muchler, donated to an online sound resource called OpSound under a Creative Commons license, made available to anybody to remix as they wished. 17-year-old violinist named Cora Beth downloaded it and added the violin track you hear on top, renamed the song My Life Changed, and then donated it back to the online sound resource for others to remix. There are at least 7 remixes that I've seen. Some of them are fantastic, some a little embarrassing. It's a Japanese remix, My Life Changed, absolutely, which, show much as they travel. But the point that my colleagues find hard to understand here is that this creativity by people who'd never met each other, never spoke to each other, was possible without any lawyer standing between them. And that's the ideal of the Creative Commons project, to make it possible for people to create legally, respecting the underlying IP without requiring the high and invasive costs of lawyers standing in the middle of this creative process. Now, many people, especially lawyers, say, well, why would any artist ever do that? What reason could they possibly have for giving away some of their rights? And there are 2 very different answers to that question. The first answer is that sometimes it actually helps the artist achieve what the artist is trying to achieve. So, for example, this is a video that has spread virally on the internet quite amazingly in the past month.
Tap, 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 no.
Couple amateur artists, amateur in the sense that they produce art for the love of what they do, not for the money, but what they did was use this company called Rever to distribute their video. And what Rever does is place a little ad bug at the end of the video, so that when the video is played, the very last scene is an advertisement by whoever is interested in advertising with that video. And because that advertisement is played with the video, the artists get paid. Indeed, these artists, for 1 week of distribution of this video, made over $25,000 because of this distribution. Now, how does this business model work? Well, it may work